There are places in history where curiosity, craft, and power meet, and something larger than any of them is made. In the ninth century, one such place rose on the banks of the Tigris. Baghdad, freshly founded and ambitiously cosmopolitan, became the site of the Beit el-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom, an institution that was less a single building than a living crossroads of languages, instruments, and questions. Walking its imagined halls, we can feel a distinct hush. Scholars copying, translating, arguing quietly, calibrating instruments, or pausing with ink-stained fingers to test a hypothesis. What was made there was not only books, but a mode of inquiry that shaped the world that followed. The House of Wisdom did not spring fully formed. It emerged within the Abbasid court, itself a product of shifting political and cultural alliances across the old Roman, Persian, and Indian worlds. Under a series of patron caliphs, most notably al-Ma'mun in the early 9th century, the court invested in learning as a practical and symbolic resource. Libraries were collected and catalogued, scribes were commissioned, and translators were encouraged to render Greek, Syriac, Persian, Sanskrit, and Coptic works into Arabic. This was a deliberate act, an effort to gather scattered knowledge into a common language so it could be tested, compared, and extended. Translation was not a mechanical process. It demanded deep familiarity with more than one intellectual tradition, and often involved creating new words, new concepts, and sometimes new disciplines. A translator like Hunayn ibn Ishaq did more than convert texts. He analyzed the logic and methods behind them, produced glosses, and sometimes corrected or restructured the material to make it intelligible to a new readership. The Arabic rendered the geometries of Euclid, the medical observations of Galen, and the astronomical hypotheses of Ptolemy into living text. In doing so, translators preserved these works at a time when their original collections were fragmentary, and they subjected them to new scrutiny and expansion. The House of Wisdom was also a place of invention. The mathematical advances associated with Baghdad are often summed up in the figure of Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi. Working in the early 9th century, he authored a compendium that codified algebra, a word that comes from the Arabic of his title, and wrote about the Indian place-value numeral system in a way that made calculation practical and teachable. The innovations mattered not only for abstract reasoning, but for administration and commerce. Accurate account-keeping, land measurement, and calendrical calculation all benefited. Elsewhere, scholars used geometry and optics to refine instruments, and physicians systematized clinical observation and pharmacology. Theory and practice braided together. Crucially, the House of Wisdom functioned as a network, rather than a monolith. Its scholars drew on Persian as astronomy, Indian mathematics, and Greek philosophy, but they also communicated with craftsmen, navigators, and physicians. Workshops for making astrolabes, for instance, sat near the libraries. Observatories coordinated empirical observation with textual exegesis. The institution's strength lay in this permeability. Differences in language or religion were often less important than shared method and a willingness to submit claims to test. Intellectual life in Baghdad was collaborative, iterative, and by modern standards, highly interdisciplinary. This intellectual culture had a material dimension that is easy to overlook, but essential to its success: the adoption of paper. After the mid-8th century, following contacts farther east, paper-making technology spread into the Islamic world. Compared to parchment, paper was cheaper and easier to produce, which made the copying of texts more feasible at scale. As books multiplied, so did marginalia, commentaries, and competing editions. The multiplication of copies meant ideas could travel more reliably and be critiqued more widely. In this way, a change in technology altered the rhythm and reach of scholarship. The House of Wisdom scholars did not merely preserve, they critiqued and extended. In medicine, physicians compared Galenic theory with empirical practices and with knowledge from Persia and India, refining diagnosis and treatment. In optics, thinkers like Ibn al-Haytham, often associated with a later but closely related scientific culture, challenged inherited assumptions about vision and experimented with light, lenses, and perception. In philosophy, commentators read Aristotle through the lenses of Neoplatonism and Islamic theological concerns, producing syntheses that would influence both the Islamic world and later medieval Europe. The method was consistent: close reading, practical testing, and a willingness to reinterpret prior authorities. The effects of this work spread far beyond Baghdad's walls. Translated texts moved outward, and in later centuries, back toward Europe, particularly during the 12th and 13th centuries, when Toledo and Sicily became centers for rendering Arabic translations into Latin. Algebraic methods, advances in optics, medical case studies, and refined astronomical tables entered curricula across the Mediterranean. Administrative techniques and mathematical tools changed how states calculated taxes and navigated seas. In short, knowledge born of synthesis and curiosity in Baghdad fed a broader transformation in how societies organized information and practiced governance. Yet the House of Wisdom's history also speaks to vulnerability. In 1258, during the Mongol sack of Baghdad, the city's institutions were shattered. Contemporary and later chronicles paint the scene with wrenching detail: libraries looted, scholars killed, and manuscripts lost. Stories of the Tigris running black with ink or clogged with paper have become emblematic. Very detail of those accounts is literally true is less important than the fact that the destruction marked a dramatic rupture. Centuries of accumulated work were dispersed or annihilated, and with them went a living community of scholars and the daily practices that sustained innovation. The story that follows is not merely one of loss, but of transformation and resilience. Elements of the House of Wisdom's output survived in copies, in the minds of itinerant scholars, and in institutions that outlived Baghdad's political fortunes. Newly translated manuscripts continued to inspire. The methods, systematic translation, critical commentary, the fusion of theory and measurement, reappeared elsewhere, and over centuries, contributed to scientific practices that underpin the modern world. The lineage is not linear, and it is not exclusive. It is a network of influences, interruptions, and revivals. What then should we take from the House of Wisdom today? First, it is a reminder that knowledge flourishes when boundaries are porous. Intellectual progress in medieval Baghdad depended on crossing languages and traditions without erasing them. It required a humility that could hold different authorities side by side and test their claims against observation. Second, it shows the importance of infrastructure. Libraries, craftsmen, instruments, and the means to reproduce texts all matter. Ideas alone are not enough. They need channels to circulate and communities to interrogate them. Finally, the tale cautions against complacency. Institutions that sustain thought are fragile if they depend entirely on a narrow political will or a single locus of power. If there is a quiet consolation, it is that ideas are stubborn. Even when libraries burn and institutions collapse, the habits of thought, translation, skepticism, meticulous observation, have a remarkable capacity to reappear. They migrate with teachers, in marginal notes, and in the practical techniques that administrators and craftsmen carry with them. The Beit al-Hikmah itself becomes, in this view, a symbol rather than a single place, an emblem of what happens when curiosity is cultivated across difference, and when scholarship is treated as a public good. In the hush of an imagined Baghdad library, one can almost hear a dialogue that stretches centuries. A Greek geometer's propositions, rephrased in Arabic margins, a Persian astronomer's observations, aligned with Indian tables, a mathematician devising a new algorithm to make the computations workable by hand. That conversation, once started, never fully ended. It traveled, changed shape, and seeded practices that later generations would call modern. To remember the House of Wisdom is to remember that knowledge is a craft formed in community, materially grounded, and morally charged by choices about what to save and whom to listen to. The House of Wisdom no longer stands, but its lessons persist. In an age of digital networks and global exchange, its story invites a simple question: how will we structure our institutions so that translation, critique, and the slow work of testing claims can continue? The futures we build will depend not only on what we invent, but on the cultures and technologies we create to carry those inventions forward. The 9th century scholars of Baghdad understood, in their quiet way, that ideas must be tended. Their legacy asks us to do the same.